Hi, everybody. Today we're going to be looking at lesson 1.2-12. I've titled this lesson, Who Needs Laws Anyway? So today we're going to be looking at England following the Norman Conquest. Once again, that Norman Conquest, this is the invasion of that French Duke, the Duke of Normandy, William the Conqueror in 1066. Following this invasion and the death of King Harold, William really establishes his control over England fairly quickly and finds those English generally accepting his rule. As William is coming in, he's bringing a lot of French customs, a lot of French norms, particularly in the area of government, especially in the area of feudalism. So he's going to be introducing a more French-like version of feudalism, the type of feudalism we've been studying in class, to England and the English way of governing. Now, within feudal England, you see that we largely have this replacing of the Anglo-Saxon system of land ownership with that of Norman lords. That's not to say that all Anglo-Saxon lords were displaced from their land. It was definitely not the case. But many of them were, especially those who had stood with King Harold against William down in Wessex. So we have more and more Norman influence in English government, more and more Norman lords taking over Anglo-Saxon estates. Those Anglo-Saxons that were left in charge quickly realized who, the winners and who the power in England was now, and they start to adapt and adopt those Norman customs. And they pick up the French language, to the point where French becomes the language of government in England for a long time. The English leaders spoke French. That eventually changes, but it takes really a couple hundred years for that to occur. So this is the feudal system introduced into England, Normans and Anglo-Saxons following this Norman leadership, and it really does do what feudalism does, and it helps to unify the realm behind that strong king. Now, within England, we're talking about a king that had absolute rule. William and his successors really were the law of the land in England. Nobody could stand up against them because their word was law. They ruled by decree. So all William and his successors needed to do to make something a law was declare it a law. That is the power of an absolute ruler. And this also means that if they were to violate their own law, they simply declare that what the king does is not against the law, and it's not against the law. So it's good to be the king in an absolute rule system. And we find that the English nobility really does accept this. They're okay with that system because William the Conqueror was generally seen as a good ruler. His immediate successors were seen as good kings. They didn't just arbitrarily make up a law for their own benefit that hurt others. There was reason behind their law. They were able to explain their reason behind their laws. And even if everybody didn't agree with every law, they generally saw these Norman kings as good kings, and therefore did not rise up and really challenge this idea of absolute rule. That is, of course, until they get a bad king. King John I was a bad king. He did all those things. He arbitrarily created laws for his own benefit. He would go after people just because he wanted their wealth. He was trying to help out friends by going after innocent people, and just not the kind of stuff that makes the people very excited and enthusiastic about their government. King John was a bad king, to the point where the English barons, the English landholders, just couldn't take it anymore. And I'm not just talking about the Anglo-Saxon ones, I'm talking about the Norman ones as well. They just could not accept this guy as their king. This is Paul Giamatti looking fairly like an ugly King John. But I thought that was a good representation of the fact that people didn't like him too much. So the barons rise up against him. They raise an army. They'll actually fight this out a couple of times. But we're going to focus on that first one. The barons raise an army that really is too strong for the king to contest. So in 1215, they do get King John to sit down at a place called Runnymede and force him to sign a document that reduces his power. That document comes to us by the name of the Magna Carta. Magna Carta is just Latin for the Great Charter. This agreement between the English king and his barons that was signed by King John in 1215. Forcefully, but signed by the king. In this charter, King John does specifically agree to 39 limitations on his power. So 39, some specific, some general limitations on the power of the king. It is absolutely still a monarchy. The King of England is still an incredibly powerful person. Some of these limitations, actually, John feels powerful enough that in the following year, he starts to ignore a number of these limitations because he's still incredibly powerful. That's not going to end well for John. His barons will rise up against him again, and he'll die that time. But in 1215, he sat down, signed this document, and the Magna Carta came into existence. The importance of this document, which carries on into today, is it establishes the idea that the powers of government can and should be limited. That governments that have absolute power abuse that absolute power. And governments which are limited are better at serving the needs of the people. This is an idea that is held near and dear to the heart of Americans today. It is one of the founding principles of our country. And we see elements of the Magna Carta through all the foundational American documents. It's in the Declaration of Independence. It's in the Constitution, the Bill of Rights. The Magna Carta is reflected in all of these things. The idea that government power can and should be limited. And with this document, 1215, so a long time ago, we see the introduction of limited rule, limited power to kings in England. Big stepping stone toward what will eventually be greater rights for all. That's all that I have for today. I hope you enjoyed our little dive into the background of the Magna Carta. We'll be doing some more with this in class. I'll see you then.